never knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead, make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Welcome to the second hour of the show. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Frank Gaffney is here. He's the founder and president of the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C. He's also the host of a national syndicated Secure Freedom Radio and the author of Sharia. We're going to tell you how to get his book, The Threat to America. He served as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Policy under President Reagan. He was nominated by Reagan to serve in that capacity. And I have to tell you, folks, if you want to know what's going on, you need to talk to Frank. Frank, good morning and welcome back to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
The first thing I would like to understand, Frank, is why are Obama and his administration giving so much help to the Muslim Brotherhood when we know that they want to achieve the same goals as Al-Qaeda?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure that I've got the answer. I think there's probably, as is generally the case in my experience, several factors that are contributing to it. I think on the one hand, this is a president who has a long track record of affinity for the hard left. And the hard left, of course, thinks basically anybody who hates America is their idea of, a natural ally, even if the end state that they seek is very different. I mean, it's hard to imagine the left surviving, let alone prospering, if the Islamists had their way.
Yeah.
You then have the fact that the guy, grew up and I think was very much influenced by Muslims himself. And I believe it's unmistakable that he has been influenced since he grew up by radical Muslims, notably Rashid Khalidi, one of his colleagues in Chicago, and those that he has associated with since he came to Washington, particularly a fellow by the name of Mohammed Majid, who is the president of the largest Muslim Brotherhood front organization in the United States. It's called the Islamic Society of North America. You add on top of all of that, that he's put into positions of influence inside his government in some cases, and in some cases as senior advisors like Majid, people with Muslim Brotherhood or other Islamist affinities or direct ties for that matter. And it's not hard to see how you get to a policy approach that pretty much brings us into submission to the Islamists.
So, Frank, as far as you can tell, I'm a simple guy. I grew up on a plantation in Alabama. I remember the Jim Crow laws, and so I come from a tough background. But even I can see that these people want to kill us because we are a Judeo-Christian nation, infidels to them, and they want to really just destroy Israel. They are the small Satan according to these people. So are you saying that these people, because they're quote-unquote far left liberals, they identify with that they can't realize or won't realize what these people would do to us if given a chance?
Well, it's not even just what they do to us as a country or as a civilization. It's what they would do to them. I mean, think about it. Who makes up the sort of base of the left, particularly in the United States? It's feminists, it's homosexuals, it's Jews, It's artists and songwriters and musicians. Those are people who are all going to die.
Yeah.
Under an Islamist Sharia adherent program, or certainly suffer profoundly. And for them not to even get that this is a matter of their own self-preservation that's on the line, it bespeaks a blindness on their part that it borders on insanity, as far as I'm concerned.
It does. That's why I'm not getting this. They would kill them as well, but either they still
First, not just as well. First, you start with the women and the Jews and the homosexuals.
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. You write on townhall.com column that Obama is planning to give the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt another $1 billion. Is that true, and will that happen?
He's given them $1.5 billion in terms of the Brotherhood-controlled government of Egypt about 4 or 5 months ago now. There's been widely reported a plan to give them one further $1 billion in debt relief, plus something on the order of $4.3 billion, I believe it is, much of it from our Treasury, but funneled through the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And that's before Mohammed Majid gets to Washington. That's the new Muslim Brotherhood president of Egypt. In addition, I think it's pretty clear that he's going to add real insult, dangerous insult to that injury by acceding to the demand that Morsi made when he was inaugurated that we must release from federal prison, where he's currently serving a life sentence, a blind sheikh, so-called Omar Abdul Rahman, who was, as you know, the lead conspirator in the first effort to destroy the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And numerous other plots. And believe me, you turn that guy loose. He is a jihadist instigator and inspiration. And this whole thing is going to get kicked up big time.
Wow. Frank, let me take a short break. We'll come back and pick up on this. Amazing stuff, folks. I want my country back. We will get it back in November.
Wishes go up and the world goes around. And
Grandpa, tell me about the good old days. Sometimes it feels like this world's gone crazy. Grandpa, take me back to yesterday, when the line between right and wrong didn't seem so hazy.
One of my favorite songs. I want the good old days back. I want them back. Frank Gaffney is with me, folks. And if you really want to know what's going on in the Middle East and what's happening with Muslim Brotherhood and all that, Frank is the guy to go to. Frank, I just, because of time, I want to go back to this question first and move on. Why is it that, can the Republicans stop Obama from giving this $1 billion or any more money to the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, I think in theory they could, but in practice I suspect it's going to be very hard. You fundamentally would have to have, I think, an act of Congress to impede his ability to do debt forgiveness. I may be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. And if so, as you know, the Republicans can't get that done by themselves. And
right.
I think there are some Democrats who are exhibiting some misgivings about what's happening with the Muslim Brotherhood, but not enough, I think, to ensure that the Senate would go along with the House, assuming the House could get something done here in the next, 24 hours or so
Yeah.
while they're in town, and then get it signed into law by the president. All of that is a pretty hard lift.
So in your research and in your mind, the Muslim Brotherhood or Muslim Brotherhood, however we call them, they are our enemies and not our friends.
Well, don't take my word for it. That's what they say. In fact, one of the most important finds, and this is an interesting story, and I would commend to your audience if they're interested in learning more about all of this. We've got a free online curriculum that they can take at their convenience. It's at MuslimBrotherhoodinAmerica.com. And there's a story there about how the FBI found the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in America back in 2004. Some of the documents they discovered were introduced into evidence in 2008 in the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history, the Holy Land Foundation trial, one of which says that the mission of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is to destroy Western civilization from within by their hands, meaning our hands, and the hands of the believers, so that God's religion is made victorious over other religions. That's their mission. That's what they're up to, and that, in fact, is what they believe will be accomplished if we don't stop them.
And by the way, I recommend that program too. It's it's excellent when people want the real truth about what's going on. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tried to get a meeting with Barack Obama. He refused to do it. And yet I read and I've heard that he invited the president of Egypt to meet with him. Is that true?
Yes, as far as we know, there will be a meeting between the Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi and President Obama. It's a little unclear at the moment whether it will be just on the margins of the UN General Assembly up in New York or whether they'll do something at the White House as well. But either way, when you see that he's got time for an enemy, but he doesn't have one for a friend, especially at a moment like this where, Israel is reckoning with having to deal with an existential threat from Iran.
Yeah,
this is the height of irresponsibility, and I think it is a travesty of the first order.
It is. This is, I often talk about a battle between good and evil. It's a spiritual battle. This is so apparent to me that I can hardly believe it. It is absolutely a spiritual battle. I want to ask about the attack on this past September 11 in Libya. I see it as another terrorist attack, but it's not being presented in that way. Am I seeing this in the wrong manner?
Well, in a way you are. It's not a terrorist attack. It's an act of jihad. And jihad, of course, is what those who adhere to Sharia, the subject of our book, Sharia, the Threat to America, that you mentioned at the beginning, which, by the way, people can also get for free at ShariaTheThreat.com. That book makes clear that what we're up against and what the administration is completely blind to, and for that matter, its predecessor was as well, is a totalitarian ideology. They call it Sharia, and it compels its followers to engage in jihad, to impose it worldwide, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. And so what you saw in Libya was an act of jihad aimed at terrifying, yes, but actually increasing the pressure on us to submit to their doctrine of Sharia. How? Specifically by saying that, we're either going to get out of the Middle East or we're going to leave them alone, or at the very least, we're not going to tell the truth about what we're up against, because that would be a Sharia blasphemy offense. And that's really where we are at the moment. The Obama administration actually, as you'll see in this course, MuslimBrotherhoodAmerica.com, is very much engaged at the moment in trying to find ways to restrict our freedom of expression, not just this filmmaker out in California, but ours more broadly, lest it give offense to Muslims and make them angry with us.
What is the outcome for us? I mean, what's going to happen to America?
A lot depends on whether we get clued up as to what we're up against. And this is what makes this question of whether we submit to Sharia blasphemy laws so important. If we do, it will become infinitely harder for us to awaken to the danger and figure out how to counter it. If we actually do learn what is in these various resources, Sharia, the Threat to America, and Muslim Brotherhood America, for example, and a brand new book, by the way, excellent new ebook by Andy McCarthy called Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy, just out today. If people will take that aboard, first of all, I think they're going to do what you want them to do, which is to end Barack Obama's presidency.
Yes.
This November. But secondly, they're going to help and insist, really, that a Mitt Romney administration effect a course correction with respect to not all Muslims, because many of them are not a problem, but with respect to those that wish to make us submit to Sharia, that we're going to have to say no and back it up, if necessary, by force.
We have about 2 minutes left here. I do want to say to the folks, your 10-part video series, The Muslim Brotherhood, The Enemy Within, is amazing. I highly recommend the people take the time and go and view those the videos. Tell the people once again how to get all that into your information.
Sure. It's a video-based curriculum. You can take it at your leisure, and the 10 parts are broken up. Most of them are about 45 minutes long or so, maybe a little shorter.
Yeah.
At MuslimBrotherhoodinamerica.com. And as you say, I hope very much they'll take the time, because I guarantee you one thing: if they do, they'll be one of the smartest people in the country on this problem.
Well, it definitely helping me to understand things clear. And thank you for what you're doing. I have the utmost respect for you. Thank you for your time.
Listen, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, now, God bless you.
You too.
Back in a moment, I'll take your calls when I come back.